100% I've seen how good copy has changed many a business. Hello and welcome to my new business chat show, the chat show to spark and fuel your own business thoughts. And as the entrepreneur's mentor, I support other business owners to start, develop, market, scale and grow their own business. And in this third podcast series, I can't wait to continue introducing you to fantastic guests who are here to share their experience, their journey as an entrepreneur, and hopefully to give you a nugget to take away and help with your journey. And today I'm delighted to welcome a friend and a supplier to me, Hilary Nightingale, a copywriter, but actually so much more. So welcome, Hilary.
Hi, mate. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Lovely to have you with me today for the show. First of all, introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, so copywriter is about right. Thank you very much. So I write for SEO. Now, when I talk about writing for SEO, I don't do the technical wizardry stuff. That's not for me at all. I do the on-page SEO writing, which is essentially website pages, blogs, case studies, all of that kind of stuff. And the off-page SEO writing, which encompasses social media and any other sort of digital products like magazines and advertising that comes along with it. So, that's what I do for my clients.
Awesome, love it. Well, we're going to explore that a little bit later and probably take some tips from you in terms of what an early stage business may need to consider from a copy perspective. But let's look at your journey. Why did you start your own business?
It was a complete accident, and I always say that to people that I didn't mean to go into business, and this goes against all of the advice that I know you give. I didn't plan to do this business at all. COVID, obviously, like lots of other people, scuppered my job. I started out working with a very, very close friend, and we're still very close friends now. And redundancy happened, and I was able to get a job very, very quickly, which I was thankful for. And that's when COVID hit, and I was put onto furlough. I qualified for furlough. I think they told me it was about by 4 or 5 days. And if I'd been any later getting that job, I wouldn't have qualified. So that's this is all about the accidents and luck. My whole story is accidents and luck. So I spent the pandemic with my girls at home. One of them was going through A-levels, or didn't, in fact, go through A-level exams. And one of them was approaching her GCSEs. So for me, that was a really fabulous time. And I'm sorry, I know that's probably the wrong thing to say for a lot of people, but for me, it gave me that connection with my family that I hadn't realised was kind of missing as they'd grown. I wasn't recalled to that job when furlough scheme ended in the August, and I started to panic, and I contacted a dear friend and a mentor and tutor for me, who took me through my diploma for digital marketing. And I said, Mary, please help me. I'm really starting to panic now. And she introduced me to somebody who was looking for my kind of help. That relationship didn't go so well, but it started me on a journey I didn't realise I needed to be on. I registered as a self-employed sole trader at that point. And when things went a little bit sour, I started to talk to another good friend. This is where all the luck comes in, who is my yoga instructor. And she said, well, if you're available to help, I need your help. And that was my first proper client, still with her today. A really good Pilates class actually last night, thank you. And she's been a terrific support for me ever since. Now, somebody in that class saw a change in her social media. I was walking my dog with this person, and she said, are you on commission? And I said, yes, kind of. And she said, well, if you do that for her, can you do that for my business? And so there was my second client. We're not actually working together anymore. They sold their business and things changed for them. But that's basically how it happened. And I thought, well, I perhaps ought to update my my LinkedIn profile. So I went to do that, and then I realised, hold on a minute, I haven't got a website, but I apparently have a business because I've got clients. So I threw together a Wix website. And I thought my first blog will be about optimizing your LinkedIn profile. So that's when I really dived into making sure that that profile looked good enough to put out on the blog. And then people started messaging me on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, are you back on the market? Shall we talk?" And there you go. I had clients.
Awesome.
So really all back to front, higgledy-piggledy, unplanned, accidental and lucky. And then I just thought, I'll go with this. I'll go with it. My employer, who had made me redundant, that first, real adventure into marketing, I suppose, had treated me with such love and respect that the thought of going back into full-time employment just filled me with dread. So I thought, I'm just going to lean into this. I'll go with it and see where it goes. And here we are, 5.5 years later. I've got a full diary, a very full diary.
Awesome.
And I'm being interviewed by one of my favourite clients. So here we are.
There you go. Well, you deserve a full diary because you're brilliant at what you do. We'll get back to that in a moment. But the accidental entrepreneur, then, what have you enjoyed most about being an entrepreneur?
So, I mean, lots of people would say being a sole trader is really lonely, but actually I don't mind it at all. This is my home. Using the home office that we saw on the floor plan as an actual home office is really, really lovely for me. I have 2 dogs, they wander in and out. I have a husband who works upstairs, he wanders in and out. And it's really, really nice for me to be able to stop the timer, go and get a cup of tea, change the laundry around, fill the washing machine, do whatever, grab a snack. But really, it's been able to sort of provide that lifestyle for me that works with, maybe it's my temperament or my personality. And a lot of people will say it's incredibly lonely. And that's why I like networking. Mm-hmm. So I don't need water cooler moments. I have networking moments, or hours, in fact. And then, chatting on LinkedIn with people. There's swings and roundabouts. What some people don't like, I actually really do enjoy. And I get my friendship and, all of that sort of banter and stuff from my networking colleagues.
And you're a great networker, not necessarily, for all the various different reasons why people network, but people want to hang out with the right people, don't they? What's been your biggest challenge then of running your own business?
Saying no. Okay. It's really recognizing the sort of client that you really want to work with. Now, somebody did say to me, just define your best client, then what's your ideal client? And you'll pardon my language, but it's somebody who gives as much of a shit about what I'm doing for them as I do. And it's not always easy to spot those people in your initial conversations when you're prospecting for work. So saying no and saying goodbye to the wrong type of client has been quite a challenge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's, pull up your socks and get it done, kind of.
Well, when we say no to the wrong ones, we find more of the right ones, or we have time to find more of the right ones. Ultimately, yeah. And how did you find the right balance between the service that Hilary wanted to offer her clients versus what your clients wanted?
I think it's all about clear briefs and clear proposals and service level agreements, really. Also, it depends on where my clients actually come from. So a lot of them are through word of mouth. I mean, that website that I threw together years ago is still pretty much as it is. I'm going to get an influx of messages now from web designers. But I don't use that website to prospect for work. My clients come from networking and those easy conversations, or they come from word of mouth through existing or past clients even. So people already have a certain expectation of me, which also helps actually with the right wrong client kind of thing as well, because people that already know me kind of know who I want to work with. It's like you know. So finding that balance. I have done some learning. I still don't want to do TikTok, although I did learn about it, which helped me decide that I don't want to
What
do
do it?
TikTok for my clients. It's easy conversations and it's clear briefs and proposals. And if they want to go for it, they want to go for it. If they know what they're going to get from me, then all the better.
Awesome. One of the things I love about you, and I guess for disclosure purposes for our listeners, we should tell our listeners that you helped me write my copy. I have done for you have done for a few years now, and you helped me predominantly write my blogs, and those blogs have been part of my books. And the first book that I wrote, which is I'm just looking at now, 105 Ways to Accelerate Your Business Success, has a lot of our content in, should I say. So my ideas, my thought process, but ultimately your skill in terms of wording it correctly. And I'm I've said it to you, I've said it to many people. I don't think it's any surprise, because of the content in that first book is why I was then engaged by the Financial Times to write the latest guide to starting a business. And I'm always grateful for that. But I think one of the things that I always admire about yourself is the ability to take my words, my thoughts, my content, if you like, but you put it in a way that just captures my voice so easily. And I think now we're at the stage now where probably I make one amendment out of 3 blogs you send me a month. How do you find that sort of skill? How do you build that skill? What's the knack to sort of understanding?
I think you've asked me that before, or you've certainly made me think about that before, because that's one of the differentiators, I suppose. Part of my USPs when I speak to people is that I have been told that I have this knack of capturing another person's tone of voice and writing as if it was them. And that's part of the reason I'm called carbon copy, is that I can write for you and nobody should really know that it isn't you, but just dialed up a bit. When I say you, I mean in a general sense. I didn't go on a course. I didn't watch any YouTube videos on how to do that. I think it's just a case of how I listen, how I question, and the time that I spend with people. And if you've got existing content out there like you do, with your YouTube videos and things, I absorb it, I watch it, I record meetings that I can watch back and play back, because you might use a particular word. I know one of your favorite words to use is consideration. You don't like to say you must do this, you have to do that. So when I think like something that as an entrepreneur you should be doing, and I think, how did Mike put that? I'll rewind the video. Okay, something you could consider is, and that's your tone, as opposed to you should be doing that, you could consider this. So that it's just a process, I suppose, that is somewhat formalized, but mainly not formalized. Nothing I do, I don't know if you got this, nothing I do is planned. Nothing I really do is fully formalized. That's not true. There are plans.
I think that's the point for me. I think that's why you're not only brilliant at what you do in terms of the writing, but you're also brilliant in terms of the networking, because you're curious, and I think that you're genuinely interested. Yeah. So when you go networking,
there you go. You see, that's you used curious. Others would use nosy.
but when you're networking, you're genuinely interested in the conversation you're having. We've both been in a lot of networks ourselves, and we know the conversation where people are just having conversation for conversation's sake. I know every conversation I have with you, you're genuinely interested in what I'm saying, and I think that's the same when you've been curious about the content I offer. One of the things I'd be really interested to know, thinking about your journey, and this was probably a little bit of a tip for the listeners as well, is if you were giving some advice to your younger self about your entrepreneurial journey, what would that advice be?
Shut up and get on with it.
Okay.
Really, I have an inner saboteur, as most people do. Sometimes she shouts louder than other times, and that is probably one of the hardest things to get over, I think, is that self-doubt. So, if you're talking about from the beginning of my business, I've had those wobbles. I've had those, crikey, what am I doing? Who's going to care about this? Moments. And it's, get on with it, you can do this. And actually somebody did say that to me. I phoned her up and I said, what am I doing? And she said, Hilary, stand up, turn around, kick yourself up the bum, and now tell yourself you can do it. And that's kind of what I had to do. But if you go back even further to a very young Hilary, when I was at school, I wanted to be a writer, and I never did. It. I ended up doing something completely different, doing lots of things completely different, in fact. But it's remember those stories and write them down. You don't have to show anybody. They don't have to mean anything to anybody else. But just if it's something that you love, it's something that you want to do, just do it for yourself even.
I love that. This isn't great for a Spotify version, but for those on YouTube, the diagram in the bottom, the yellow diagram there, basically says, what do you love doing? What are you good at? And hopefully it pays you well. And if you can combine those three things, you'll have a good business that you want to run. Love that. So let's flip the conversation a little bit then, in terms of rather than looking at your journey, let's look at your expertise. And thinking about our listeners that are on the maybe a startup business or in the early years of their running their organisation. How should they be thinking about their copy? What tips would you give someone to think about writing good copy, other than hiring yourself, obviously?
So it's very different. I'm going to talk about AI. It's the AI. This AI story in my small sphere has peaked and started to come back down the other side already, where lots and lots of people are already saying, I don't like it. It just feels wrong. It's just uncomfortable. I don't want to use it. Do you use it? We've had this conversation as well. So, however, AI is out there, it is working, and it is doing a fantastic job for lots of reasons. So when you're writing, you do have to bear that in mind, but still bear in mind that this is a human being that you're writing for, that it's not AI who's going to make any decisions. It's not AI who's going to put their hand in their pocket and book you. So you do need to write for the human being as well. Now I started seeing in the analytics of some of my clients that ChatGPT is showing up as a referral. So somebody has Googled, shall we say, there are other search engines out there, a question. And as you know, you get the AI summary at the top. And some of my clients have appeared in that AI summary. And someone's have clicked on those links, which has taken them to my client's website. So think about, when you're writing, all those keywords which you need to do your research for. So there is some planning involved, and find out who is asking what, where and when and why. And then use those keywords to answer the burning questions. And it's, if you are writing in a human manner for human beings, this is contradictory. AI actually appreciates that and recognizes it as decent content, especially if you're using those chosen keywords in the right places of the copy. So there's a little tiny bit of technical stuff that goes in, which is what we call metadata. So making sure that your keywords are in the heading and various subheadings and behind alt text of images, etc. But really keep writing for the human being and sound like a human being. You'll recognize AI writing because it will be so and so isn't just this, it's that, or in the world of, or in the sphere of, and blah, blah, blah. You'll recognize it and you will automatically just switch off a little bit. So keep writing for human as a human.
I love that. I love that my surname's Foster, because the word fostering jumps out at me like a sore thumb every time I see some AI written content.
Yeah, which I can't use that word anymore because it's been overused.
I think it's I think the interesting thing for me as well is that in the early days when we were sort of talking about what my content could be, what ideas could I come up with, I'd give you some themes, some titles, etc. I think one of your expertise moments that I've always gained is that you've sort of challenged me on the titles. You've come back with better titles. You've come back with keyword relevant titles rather than, let's just grow a business. Well, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that get to your audience? But I think the other thing that's quite powerful for me, and this is, what I see with a lot of people's content is a little bit like me before you supported me, was I'd probably just be lazy. I'd probably think I've just got to write a blog, and I'd write a blog and get it up there and job's done, move on. But what you'll do, you're particular. You get the tags in the right places, you get the right titles, you get the keywords, not keyword filling, but you get the keywords in. But the bit I do love is you're always linking into other articles. You're linking into other articles of my content, my videos, my other blogs, other articles that are relevant. And I think, that I'm sure is playing a big part into, I love the phrase you use in your introduction, you're writing for SEO. I love that.
Yeah, that is, the bots, they love internal and external links, but going back to the human element kind of thing, you can expand on that if you want to find out more. You can, and it's surreptitious, it's gentle, it's not like, right now you have to read this one because I've just touched on that subject, now you have to read that blog. It's not like that. It's, if you wanted to, you could click on this little link here because it's part of a sentence and it's organic. But the thing about putting internal links like that is that if you match the keywords within the sentence to the destination of that link, that goes into part of the SEO in the tiny little manner, in a tiny little way as well. So yeah, I am quite detail focused. Thank you for noticing. I like that.
And if you, if for example, you were working with a new client, and again, I'm hoping this question is going to help our listeners today, but you're working with a new client, they're in X industry. How do you get them to think about the things to write about? How do you guide them to think about the things to write about?
Yeah, so lots of people will come and say, I've got a new thing and I want to, want people to know about it. And that's really grand. There is always more you can extrapolate from a single topic. So you might say, let's talk about the growth stage of a business in a startup. So, oh my goodness, how much is there that you can pull out of that? But if you're a service business, you get phone calls, you get emails, you get inquiries. This isn't actually my tip. I'm repurposing this from a book. I can't remember what his name was, but those questions that you get could easily be blog titles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if you think about, and then here's the detail side of things as well, is theming those questions, grouping them together so that there's a greater story. When somebody lands on your blog page, maybe there's 3 or 4 blogs on a similar topic and they can pick and choose which one they want to go to. Maybe the internal links swap between those blogs as well, rather than the scattergun, how do I deal with my inner saboteur one day? I mean, I'm thinking on the fly now. How do I deal with my inner saboteur one week, and then how do I manage my time the following week? If you wanted to include that all under the banner of startup, you can, but you'd have to craft the title to show that it's along the same theme, that you're speaking to the same group of people, as opposed to the CEO who now needs to get a second PA to manage their time better. Anyway, I forgot what your question was originally.
I think that's it's the emails that you send me saying, okay, Mike, we need to think about some content, and I go, surely we've written about everything over the last few years, and
pretty
now
much have.
we're writing a couple of blogs per month, and I go, I can't even think of 2 titles, and then suddenly I just give a thought sometimes, and you come back with like the next 3 or 4, 5, 6 themes, and that's what I love about the way that you think, that conscientious thinking that you do.
And this is where your presence on LinkedIn is really helpful as well, because you will be talking about something and I can pick 3 or 4 things out of there that could be expanded on or grouped together into one larger blog.
Yeah. And I think that's the bit that I probably underestimated before using a service like yourself, is in terms of how that sort of one article can be expanded in that particular way. So what other tips would you give anybody that's sort of starting a business, early stage business, or even an established business in terms of to get better copy?
So do your research. Oh, it's understanding your audience and knowing what they need from you, their fears, pains, wants, needs, desires.
Yeah, that's the
And
ones.
they're the ones. Yeah, and just actually showing up. Some people say done is better than none. Some people say good enough is never good enough. It's how it sits comfortably with you. If you want people to know that you're out there, go out there, however you're happy and comfortable to do that, whether it's on social media and just trying out with a brand new Facebook page and getting into those local Facebook groups, whether it's going to a no pressure networking group where you don't have to, wear a suit or high heels or something daft like that, where you don't have to eat in front of other people because you're too nervous to actually even eat properly. Something nice and low pressure, something easy, comfortable for you in your comfort zone. You don't have to, I'm looking at your sign there, you don't have to push yourself right from the very beginning.
Awesome.
There's time for that. There's a time for that, but it's perhaps not as a startup.
Love that, Hilary. As always, lovely having a conversation with you, learning a little bit more about what it is that you do and the expertise that you bring, and also to hear a little bit more about your accidental journey into entrepreneurship. But I know you're loving it, you're embracing it, you're giving the, one of the things I always admire about yourself is the work-life balance you give yourself as well, from that side of it, for your family, for your friends, for those that are within your network. If people want to check you out, if people want to connect with Hilary, how do they best do that, Hilary?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Hilary Nightingale. I don't have a LinkedIn page. There is occasionally hedgehog content on there as well, but you can find me as the Hedgehog Lady on Facebook and Instagram also. And obviously, if you can find my little Wix website, then my contacts are on there. But yeah, just ask around if you do networks and somebody might know me.
Brilliant. Hilary, thanks again for spending some time with me and sharing your thoughts and your expertise with our listeners.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's good to see you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in for this latest episode of my new business chat show. And hopefully you agree, another great guest on the show sharing their knowledge, experience, expertise to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Please do subscribe to my channel, either here on YouTube or on Spotify. And when I have another great guest coming along, you'll be the first to know.